Welcome to this daily PBJ devotional. Read 2 Samuel 8 and 9 and Ezekiel 16 today. This devotional is about 2 Samuel 8 and 9. Sometime later, David defeated the Philistines, subdued them, and took Metheg-ammah from the hand of the Philistines. David also defeated the Moabites, made them lie down on the ground, and measured them off with a cord. He measured off with 2 lengths those to be put to death, and with 1 length those to be spared. So the Moabites became subject to David and brought him tribute. David also defeated Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, who had marched out to restore his dominion along the Euphrates River. David captured from him 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers, and he hamstrung all the horses except 100 he kept for the chariots. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help King Hadadezer of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 men. Then he placed garrisons in Aram of Damascus, and the Arameans became subject to David and brought him tribute. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. And David took the gold shields that belonged to the officers of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. And from Betah and Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took a large amount of bronze. When King Toi of Hamath heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, he sent his son Joram to greet King David and bless him for fighting and defeating Hadadezer, who had been at war with Toi. Joram brought with him articles of silver and gold and bronze, and King David dedicated these to the Lord, along with the silver and gold he had dedicated from all the nations he had subdued, from Edom and Moab, from the Ammonites and Philistines and Amalekites, and from the spoil of Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He placed garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites were subject to David. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. Thus David reigned over all Israel and administered justice and righteousness for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the recorder. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests. Sariah was the scribe. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and Pelethites, and David's sons were priestly leaders. 2 Samuel 9. Then David asked, "Is there anyone left from the house of Saul, to whom I can show kindness for the sake of Jonathan?" And there was a servant of Saul's family named Ziba. They summoned him to David, and the king inquired, "Are you Ziba?" "I am your servant," he replied. So the king asked, "Is there anyone left of Saul's family, to whom I can show the kindness of God?" Ziba answered, "There is still Jonathan's son, who is lame in both feet." "Where is he?" replied the king. And Ziba said, "Indeed, he is in Lodabar, at the house of Machir, son of Ammiel." So King David had him brought from the house of Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lodabar. And when Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he fell face down in reverence. Then David said, "Mephibosheth!" "I am your servant," he replied. "Do not be afraid," said David, "for surely I will show kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land of your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table." Mephibosheth bowed down and said, "What is your servant, that you should show regard for a dead dog like me?" Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said to him, "I have given to your master's grandson all that belonged to Saul and to all his house. You and your sons and servants are to work the ground for him and bring in the harvest, so that your master's grandson may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, is always to eat at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. And Ziba said to the king, Your servant will do all that my lord the king has commanded. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's own sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah. And all who dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants of Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, because he always ate at the king's table, and he was lame in both feet. This is God's word. It was a long, winding road from David being anointed king back in 1 Samuel 16 to actually becoming king of all Israel in 2 Samuel 5. After many days of adversity and danger, David was enjoying some success, finally, in the past few chapters of 2 Samuel. Chapter 8 of our reading today is especially positive. It describes military success in verses 1 through 6, increasing wealth in verses 7 through 12, and growing fame in verse 13. Verse 14 ends with this apt summary. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. That's, again, verse 14 from the NIV. When someone is highly successful, that person may be tempted to become proud, or merely complacent even. The temptation to kick back and enjoy the fruit of your success can be very strong. David in chapter 9 went the other direction. When he finally obtained success, he started looking for ways to be an unselfish, kind servant. Verse 3 of chapter 9 told us, and these are the words of the NIV, the king asked, Is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness? The answer was Jonathan's son Mephibosheth, the lame lad of Lodebar, as he is sometimes called, and verse 4 tells us about him in chapter 9. David moved Mephibosheth to Jerusalem, and Mephibosheth ate at the king's table as if he were a relative, as we saw in verse 13. David also provided him with servants who tended to his land, according to verses 9 and 10. This was an incredibly gracious act by King David, and it made a significant difference in the life of a man with physical limitations. Are you in a season of life marked by success and stability? If so, have you looked for a way to serve? Or maybe you're not there yet. Maybe your life is still building. But what about when you reach a certain level of stability? Do you have any ambitions, any goals, any plans to serve others and to find a way to serve the Lord in a greater way? Let me urge you to consider that today. And we'll see you next time. May God bless you. Hope you have a great day today.